Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Janey Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hi and welcome to the podcast. I hope you're well. Just heard the really great news that, apropos to absolutely nothing, but things are really changing, aren't they, in the sober scene? And someone in the Sober Club alerted me to the fact that a cruise line is now going to be stocking Lyres. How cool is that? If you're not aware, Lyres are an amazing range of alcohol-free drinks, and according to my Sober Club member who posted this this announcement, I suppose, Carnival Cruise Line are going to be the first cruise line to offer a fully inclusive non-alcoholic cocktail menu. Isn't that amazing? I mean, about time. It's always the thing, isn't it? So many people in the Sober Club are like, oh, I'm doing really well, but I'm going on an all-inclusive holiday, or but I've got my first flight next week. And it's such a thing at the beginning, in the early stages, where these old associations, you know, holidays, cruises, flights, all-inclusives, you know, it equates with booze. And when you've just got to get your head around it, you've just got to change the neural pathways, but absolutely do your prep. So that's a fantastic start for anyone who's doing that. And, you know, you've heard me say lots of times before, if you are going on a flight and you know that's going to be a trigger for you, just prep ahead, prep what you will drink. Because some airlines now do stock some alcohol-free stuff, I'm really pleased to say. And you can always, you know, if you're desperate, just take a little 100ml bottle, forego one of your toiletries. I remember doing that. The first time I went on a long haul flight, I went to Canada when I'd only been sober for, I think it was 3 months, and I was going on my own, and I knew this was going to be a big kind of trigger association thing, long haul flight, everyone cracking open the booze next to me, and I was really nervous about it, and I knew that my unconscious mind would need to feel looked after, as it were, and of course you can only take so many liquids on a plane, so I actually sort of forgot about the cleanser or whatever, and I took one of those little bottles of Sea Arch, I think it was, the Sea Arch Spirit, and then ordered a tonic and pimped with some lime and lemon or whatever, and it just did the trick for my unconscious mind at that point. It really did. So do whatever it takes to get you through, but preempt the fact that these cravings, these triggers will be strong when you're in the early weeks and months, because it's what we've always done, and it really is a case of just prepping ahead, rehearsing it in your mind, because in a way it is a rehearsal. You're actually encouraging your unconscious mind to learn how to do new stuff, right? And so anyways, that's a very good start. There's also some really interesting stuff in the US. I saw a very interesting study that came out, a survey that came out around the drinking culture in the States. And apparently 1 in 4 people in the US are now aware of the sober curious movement. So, not necessarily not drinking, but they're aware of this whole trend. And there was another really fascinating statistic, which was, where is it? I'm sure I had it in front of me. 34% of Americans are aiming to drink less alcohol this year. So that's interesting, isn't it? Maybe times really are changing. I might talk to somebody about that survey. I found that quite fascinating. Just a heads up that we have got a few events coming up within the various stuff that I do. I wear a few different hats, as you all know. So Family Constellations is coming up in April. That's in Hertfordshire. That's Saturday, April the 15th. The day before, we have something for heart-centered biz owners. So drop me a message if that's you. If you're a coach or a practitioner, or you're a therapist, or you have some kind of heart-centered business and you want to do something around reaching your full potential, then drop me a message if that's something of interest. And then we have a Sober by the Sea, which is open to absolutely everybody. Again, if you happen to be in the southeast, I know everything's very southeast central at the minute, but that is on April 22nd. So again, drop me a message if that's of interest. If you want to connect, do a vision board, just focus on what it is you want for you for the future. then drop me a message if that's of interest. And we're booking for our next Sober Coach training as well. So again, if that's of interest, then drop me a message. Appreciate not for everyone. I'm so excited about this week's special guest. I mentioned last week that I'd had the opportunity to go to the book launch of Brian Clement, author of The Self-Healing Diet, along with Anna Clement, PhD. And Brian is a pioneer in wellness, a biochemist. He's an expert in progressive natural health treatments and programs, co-founder of Hippocrates Wellness, which is a globally renowned retreat. It's been going for so many years. It's in West Palm Beach, and we get to hear of it because it's frequented by a lot of stars. Sir Anthony Hopkins has been there. He's talked about it. Elle Macpherson, Venus and Serena Williams, Rebel Wilson. Lots of stars talk about Hippocrates because they really know their stuff. And this is a great book that Brian and Anna have written, The Self-Healing Diet, about how diet and exposure to toxicity can impact on our metabolism, on our weight, how our environmental choices make a difference, how our emotional state influences our behaviour, obviously. It really is the holistic picture. That's what I love about this. So looking forward to bringing you this interview, and I'll put all the details of the book, of course, in the show notes. Just before we get into that, I just want to mention that in the Sober Club this week, there's been quite a lot of conversation around how we do the, looking after ourselves piece, or should I say, remembering to look after ourselves. And I have a one-to-one client at the moment who is a carer, and it really kind of made me realise, wow, some people are carers. They're carers by profession. They're very caring in their nature. For some people, as I say, it's what they do for a living, or even if it's not their work. So many people are caring for children, or they're caring for elderly parents. So this caring thing, this nurturing thing, is very much in the nature of a lot of people. But when it comes to taking proper care of ourselves, it's a completely different story. And it's almost as though something switches off and the voice in our head says, oh, but I'm not worth it. Yes, I will make absolutely certain that my elderly mother or the person I'm caring for gets really good nutritious food and doesn't miss a meal, and I'm going to make really sure that they're comfortable and they've got nice things and they're getting good sleep, and I'm going to do any little things I can think of to just actually ease the process, particularly if they're not well or if they're in some kind of recovery phase. We go out of our way, most of us, to try and care for other people. It's in our nature, it really is. And thank goodness that that's the way we are. But we have a complete block when it comes to ourselves. Literally, it's as if self-sabotage comes in. And I think for a lot of people, when they stop drinking, there is this sense of, I don't know, it's anxiety, it's fear of the unknown, it's a little bit, they feel a little bit raw and exposed. There's often guilt in there. I've spoken about this a lot in the past, how when I stopped drinking, I felt extreme guilt. I didn't tell anyone because I felt so guilty. It was dawning on me, the scales were coming off, and it was dawning on me all those years that I'd been literally abusing myself. And so I did have a sense of guilt. Nothing felt quite right. I now know that's because the brain chemistry was completely out of whack. Where was my dopamine coming from? Where was I going to get my serotonin hit? And all of this was a recalibration of everything. I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't know what I know now about nutrition and about well-being and about connection. And the reality is, if you're in the early stages, actually at any time, we have to do the self-care piece. We have to listen to that voice in the head, the one that's saying, oh, you're not worth it, and challenge those thoughts, because we absolutely have to take care of ourselves first, actually. We know all those old sayings, you can't pour from an empty cup, you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first. We all know them. They sound like complete cliches, but we don't necessarily do them just because we know. We need to actually put this stuff in place. And I'm not necessarily talking about the spa days and the holidays. That's lovely. If you can do that stuff, that's great. But for most of us, it's actually the little things. It's putting in place the little things. That's what makes the difference. Being able to nurture ourselves in small ways, just exactly the way we would someone that we love unconditionally, and make that your plan, make that your commitment. And especially if you're in the early stages of stopping drinking, this is not the time for dieting. This is not the time for, fasting. Yes, make some good choices, but it's not the time to be depriving yourself of anything. You need really, really good nutrition, because that's how you can best support the brain chemistry. And on that note, some of Brian's views and opinions are quite hard hitting. So, take it as you find it. He's been in this gig an awful long time, and I love the fact that we can bring this interview to you on this podcast. As you know well, everything I do is about so much more than, in inverted commas, just not drinking. I do think that many people, when they stop drinking, that's when they sometimes for the first time begin to realize, okay, perhaps I do have to look at the whole picture, the holistic picture. It's not just stop drinking and carry on everything the same as it always was, because it really doesn't work that way. You will absolutely find that you do become more aware, and that you are, to a certain extent, a different person. And fortunately, you're the real you. You can actually come back to being who you really are. I've never met anyone yet who says, oh, you know what? I really liked myself more when I was drinking. Oh, I so wish that I was still locked in the alcohol trap. No, nobody ever says that, right? This is your opportunity. It's such a gift to have this realization that it's time to stop drinking. So if you are early days, the best is yet to come, honestly. Anyways, enjoy the interview. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to chat to Brian Clement. Oh my goodness, I've known about you, Brian, for so many years and wanted to chat to you. Amazing that you're willing to chat to us. I'm very excited about the book, The Self-Healing Diet. So Brian is a biochemist and world-renowned pioneer in wellness. An expert in progressive natural health treatments and co-founder of Hippocrates Wellness.org. So Brian, thank you so much for being willing to chat to us. Very exciting. Your book, I haven't had a chance to dig into it all yet, but for people who haven't heard about you, haven't come across your work, can you just give us a little bit of background as to, your story, how you got started in all of this?
Surely, I'm an American, an Irish Catholic, so I was surrounded by lots of bad food and drink when I was a kid.
Yeah, I bet.
And I remember my aunt had to go and collect the checks on Friday afternoon from my uncles as they left their workplace so that they didn't get into the pub. And so I was in a situation where I was actually a pioneer in American obesity. I became a fat boy. I became a very fat boy. And, because I was a male, they kept telling me I was big. So, of course, my fantasy mind brought that over to that made me strong.
Right.
When I was around 20, the summer of 1969, an older woman, 75-year-old woman who had reversed cancer with a healthy plant-based diet, hit me in the back of the head, literally, and said, "Wake up, boy, you're going to die." And, when you're 20, you think you have eternal life. You have no concept that there's ever an end to this thing. And it somehow resonated with me because she watched me struggle, pull myself upstairs. And that was the beginning of my voyage. She led me to be educated in this field. And now it's 53 years this year that I've worked in this. And I was very fortunate. In 1975, I joined the Hippocrates Health Institute, which was the world's pioneer in self-care, SELF care. And our founder in 1952 was told by the top doctors in the United States at Harvard, she had 90 days to live. She had advanced stage 4 cancer. And she went home, got angry. She was a European from Lithuania, peasant, who migrated to America, and watched her grandmom put arms and legs back on people with herbs and food. So she said, well, the hell with that. And she basically got well and opened up the doors of Hippocrates Health Institute 1956.
Wow.
So we're now about almost 70 years old in 3 years. It will be our 70th. And we've had hundreds of thousands of people, many Brits come through, even Anthony Hopkins, who, by the way, has been sober now for a number of years.
I know.
Yeah.
He often talks about it, doesn't he? Something like 47 years or something. It's unbelievable.
One of the nicest human, I'm going to tell you, he is quite a lad. That guy is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. No pretense in him at all. And so we've watched people heal catastrophic disease. And my wife and I now combined, we have 100 years of experience in this. It's our centenarian time on this. And we said, hey, the new mission is self-healing. Why? Because, man, we're in trouble everywhere on the planet Earth. Just yesterday, we read a scientific study that came out and said 99% of people are breathing microscopic pollutants in the air that are going to cause neurological problems and cancer. We are in big trouble. If you look at your health system in this country, it's pretty much so heavy at this point, it's collapsing the economy. And by the way, it's not working well. If it were a system that worked well, we wouldn't have all these concerns that we have. And what is lacking is people don't realize that our great-grandparents, not so many years ago, understood about self-healing and self-responsibility. You didn't run to a doctor or a hospital every time you had a sniffle. And you pretty much knew what to eat. Everything was organic. You didn't have to go to a whole food market to buy organic food. Christ, my grandfather.
It was organic because it was grown in the garden, right? Or grown locally, seasonal and organic.
Yeah. If you said to my Irish Catholic grandfather, Dan Daly, I'm going to put some spray on your vegetable, he'd pop you in the nose. He would have said, what are you, nuts?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my background. I've been doing this now for a long time, and it's a lot of fun to watch what happens when people take responsibility.
Yeah, totally. And as you say, this connection between lifestyle and wellness, it's so misunderstood. It really is. And as you also talk about in the book, and I must mention Anna, by the way, of course, your co-author, as you say, Anna-Marie Clement. Diet and exposure to toxicity impacts our weight, it impacts our metabolism, it impacts our lifestyle. I mean, there's so much we can get into here. Why don't we just have a little look at some of the sections in the book, and just share with us some of the really important pieces. Let's start with food choices, shall we? Because doctors won't agree with this, obviously, but you and I both know it all starts with nutrition. I mean, still to this day, it just still freaks me out that in the UK I think it's half a day's training in nutrition in 7 years. I think I'm right in saying that. Now, of course, we've got more doctors now who are on it. Of course we have, which is fantastic. But still, that basic training does not involve nutrition. How bonkers is that?
Well, it's bonkers, but the whole world that we live in is bonkers today. So let's address the doctors. I used to be upset with them, and then I realized these are good women and men that at one point at 17, 18 years old decided they were going to dedicate their lives to help people. There's much easier ways to make money, let's be honest.
Yeah, true.
So, and they didn't realize, I'm sure, not that they were naive, but they were young, that the entire system is actually created by the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about health at all, is it? It's about keeping you sick.
The healthcare system has nothing to do with health, which is nuts.
Yeah.
So let's speak about diet. I mean, we talk about the pharmaceutical industry, but let's go back to the food industry. And how did we get into this dire situation? Well, again, we discussed a minute ago that your great-great-grandparents here in Britain and all over the planet Earth had gardens, organic gardens. What they didn't grow, they shared with their neighbor. The farmer down the road was there. Everything was fresh, everything was clean, and people ate well and very, very little. Remember, people weren't perpetual eaters then. They were exercisers. I mean, it wasn't an option not to exercise then. And the reality was, the farmer and the farmer's wife and would get up in the morning and look out the window and say, do we want to die or do we want to farm? And once they made the choice to farm, they did aerobic exercise, they did weightlifting exercise, and they did stretching exercise. Now, what happened is somewhere here in this wonderful country of England, they invented the Industrial Revolution. And that was when the landowners, the dukes and God knows who, basically who were making all of their money from taxing peasants who lived on their property, decided that wasn't enough for them. So they had to produce products to sell to the peasants. And so now we have these factories that are spewing waste out into the air. Oh, we just thought the ocean was a big dump site and the river, so we dumped it into there, et cetera. And now we found ourselves in trouble because all of the farmers became factory workers. And they moved into London and Manchester and all over. And the fact was, how are we going to feed these people? And they couldn't just give them fresh food, especially in the middle of winter. So they started to can food and they started to process food. And sadly, they started to chemicalize food. And in the last several decades, genetically modify food. This is not food anymore. So it's dead, it's inert, and it's deadly chemicals in there. That when they say the British Cancer Society, we need more money to learn why we get cancer, that's bonkers. I know exactly why people get cancer. I know exactly why people have heart attacks and strokes. 25% of who dies in this country has heart attacks and strokes. You have 370,000, 75,000 people a year contracting cancer in Britain. And by the way, 167,000 dying every year because of these bonker things that we do. And the fact of the matter is, why we don't educate physicians about this is because there's no money in telling people to take responsibility and self-heal. If you self-heal, you don't need to spend money on junk food. And by the way, the result of junk food is disease at that point. So this is clear to me and any sensible person who bothers to look at history. The problem is we all become specialists in a certain area. Even naturopathic doctors have a limited understanding. You've got to look at natural history. You've got to look at chemistry, biochemistry. You've got to look at quantum physics and physics. And if you're willing to do that, then you have the ability to stand up and say, I want to help people. If not, if you have half the answer, you're as dangerous as you could possibly be.
Yeah, totally. So how do we, where do we start then with someone who perhaps recognizes, is hearing this, perhaps, waking up, as it were, but, it's not been good for the last however many years. Maybe they're, often people only start to look at this stuff when there's something already tipping up, when they realize they're massively overweight, or they realize, they're getting unhealthy, or they've had some kind of diagnosis, or perhaps someone in their family has had a diagnosis, and that's like the wake-up call, right? But where do we start then? Let's take people who are battling with weight. In the work that I do, with people who are ditching the booze, so often they recognize something has to change, and very often the kind of next thought is, and I'll do that because I want to lose weight. Now I know we're slightly changing topics here, but I always say, don't even think about losing weight. Think about focusing on really good nourishment while you're ditching the booze.
I'll give you a story. When I was a kid, we joked earlier about it, but all of my uncles were outright alcoholics. There was no joke in that. So the Irish stereotype actually does apply. And why? Because downtrodden people try to escape.
Sure.
You don't have to be Irish and downtrodden. You could be, a GP here and have the same problem, or the prime minister of the country. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Here's what I've understood. When I was a kid, I played in bands, and what you have to know is that I had one guy that played in there, a guitar player, and in our generation in the 60s, it wasn't popular to drink. We smoked grass.
Yeah.
He was a closet alcoholic, and one day he didn't show up to practice, and we called. His mother was screaming that they found him dead. It was an alcohol overdose, and he drank vodka, so we didn't smell it. And I frankly today 60 years later feel guilty about this because we couldn't have that dialogue. So when I moved to Boston, where the birthplace of Hippocrates, the founder of the self-care movement and also lifestyle medicine, I volunteered to speak at AA meetings. And it was in Cambridge, where Harvard is. And Cambridge is an interesting community. It's half blue-collar workers and half, intellectuals. And I would go there and they would acutely listen to me and understand nutrition balances blood sugar. So you don't want as much alcohol, you don't want alcohol, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I'd watch it break. They put coffee with their sugar. And a former professor walked over to me and said, Brian, we do that so we don't go back to it. Yeah. Well, there's something you can do, nutrition. And I write about this in the book. Your body is starving if you're not nourished. Most of these so-called diet programs out there lack essential micronutrients.
Yeah.
And we actually think that our brains are so intelligent that we have complete control. Your brain is controlled by hormonal messaging. And if, by the way, your intestinal tract doesn't say, I have the nutrient, a calcium, a magnesium, a protein, a vitamin, it actually gives a message to a part of the brain, a hormone, that says you're hungry. So you can't stop eating or drinking at that point. The other problem is they realized along the way, the food industry, the corrupt food industry, that if you put sugar into food, people become addicted to the product. Yeah. One step more, I speak about this in the book, the former head of our Food and Drug Administration, Dr. David Kessler, shocked me. I'm hardly ever shocked. I was walking onto a stage at a major medical conference. He said, Brian, every major food industry internationally puts synthetic opiates in the food beyond the sugar. So they set you up to your children, your loved ones, your friends, the entire society to get addicted to fast food and chips, and the list goes on, cookies. And so a lot of you that felt weak out there, I'm not strong enough to give up the drink. I'm not strong enough to give up the thing. There's a scheme out there.
Yeah.
And the fact is, it's to get you to buy that product. And government doesn't intervene because the tax dollars are lucrative from this. And nobody talks about it. And medicine doesn't even address it. So that's why I'm here on a mission, worldwide mission, to give people their lives back and to say, look it, if you understand what's happening to you, you have a fighting chance to live a normal, happy, healthy, long life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough though, isn't it? Because even when we try and eat well, in inverted commas, the amount of absolute nonsense stuff that's snuck in, even to what we would think are relatively innocuous foods. I mean, one of the other things I spend my life doing is I'm helping people, I'm supporting people to stop drinking, but in the same breath, I'm having to say, and for God's sake, don't have artificial sweeteners, right? Because the devil's own work. Right?
It is. I mean, look, aspartame is outrageous. Aspartame causes cancer, neurological problems, Alzheimer's disease. These aren't opinions I have. These are scientific data. I don't ever have opinions that aren't backed by science. Just today, as an example, just today, the Paris Agreement, this is what they said, will fail with methane emissions from dairy and meat consumptions. Your Telegram, I was over here years ago, on the front page said, if the Brits don't give up meat and dairy, we cannot survive into the future. Poland, of all places, my God, Poland, the land of kielbasa, told you the same thing. So we're now knowing that not only do you pollute your body, when you eat animal-based foods, you destroy the planet Earth that we're on. And by the way, it bioaccumulates. So when I'm eating chicken, when I'm eating fish, when I'm eating any of these things, steak, that poor animal is eating kilo after kilo after kilo of polluted, God knows what, feed they're giving them that often are ground up animals. This is where mad cow disease came from, right here in Britain. And at the same point, the methane gas is going into the atmosphere, which is much, much, much worse than even the automobile fumes that are coming out. So you're dying, the chemicals are in there, you're eating it, your body is actually struggling to be nourished, so you're perpetually eating like I used to. That's why I weighed 120 pounds more. And the fact is, None of this is working. And you're right. They're putting synthetic this in. The joke is my mother used to be sitting, God bless her soul, with a big piece of cake with a Diet Coke next to it. And I would say, Mom, why are you doing that? Because addiction is addiction, and food addiction's the most pervasive addiction. Not everyone takes drugs, but everyone eats crap.
Very true. Very true. So where does someone start then? Obviously you would advocate a plant-based diet, whole foods. Give us some suggestions, give us some pointers.
There's two kinds of people listening here. There's people who are facing imminent disease problems, and they have to rapidly jump on the horse, even though it's kicking around, and learn how to ride it. The rest of us can have a sensible plan over a year or so. And when I started, I realized my personality was all or nothing. So I had to give up all of this rapidly. So when I gave up cigarettes, I gave up 3 packs a day. When I gave up all animal food in the summer of 1969, it was all animal food. And was it easy? No. I would smell somebody cooking bacon in the house. I wanted to break in and get it. But after about a year, 12 months of it, it no longer looked like food. My body normalized biochemically. I started to recognize what real nutrition was. And Handel's Hallelujah was playing in my cells because they said, my God, he's feeding us.
Yeah.
He's feeding us here. And when you do that, by where you have substance in your bloodstream, you don't go after the sugars. You don't go after the alcohol. You don't go after the cake. You don't go after the cookies. It's a slow but sure process. And remember, these are the causes of disease today. These are the causes of aging. Look at all of the aging research going on globally. Every one of them say plant-based diet. Every one of them say exercise. Every one of them say community. Community is important. But as important as all of that is, you've got to understand that nobody can do this for you. And when you go to a doctor, don't expect the doctor to know about nutrition. When you come to me, don't expect me to know about brain surgery. But I don't talk about brain surgery. And the fact of the matter is, learn this on your own. And this is my 31st book.
Is it? Wow. Amazing.
Yeah,
we got some catching up to do then if people are new to you. Fantastic.
And I'm currently writing 3 more books. One of them, by the way, is How to Live to 120 with another doctor.
Nice.
By the way, his wife healed stage 4 melanoma with us 19 years ago.
Wow.
And when we say that, that's not pie in the sky anymore, that the young people listening to us today, very, very clearly, they'll have an opportunity to live to 120, 130, 140. The key research scientists are telling us that in the next 10 years, it will be 140. And in the young generation, in their teens now, it will be 200.
Wow.
Now, what the hell are you going to do with a miserable life living 200 years?
Yeah.
You got to straighten out now.
Very true. Very true. I know you also, and I'm really pleased that you cover this in your book, the whole environment and lifestyle choices, because again, in my first book that was, goodness, 16 years ago, I was kind of a bit ahead of my time writing about the issues with electromagnetic frequencies. And, and I mean, look where we are now. Nobody can put their phone down for a second. And it's difficult, isn't it? That there is so much of this lifestyle stuff that when we try to address it, it is a sticking plaster on an ocean. We have to be honest about that. But in your opinion, what are some of the, even if small things we can do to somehow bring back balance?
Well, one of the things that I like is there are certain restaurants, health restaurants more so, that do not allow cell phones into the restaurant. You put it in the basket when you come in. So people
in the US? I don't know if we've got any in the UK.
No, I've seen it in Europe too. I've seen it in Germany. I've seen it in Sweden.
What an interesting idea.
Yeah, so I mean, the UK can do it. So the fact is it gives people a disconnect. So you're sitting there, you're talking to your family, you're talking to your friends, you're talking to your date that night, or your husband or wife. Christ, you don't even talk to these people. You're married to them.
Yeah.
The other thing is with children. I know the parents are completely addicted. The statistic is amazing. 67% of the people who own cell phones are perpetually connected to it in an addictive way. Now,
Yeah.
that's a fact, by the way. That's a fact. 67 are perpetually addicted to it. They can't put it down. They're checking constantly. What does
Yeah.
that do to your life? Number two, when you use a cell phone, that electromagnetic frequency that you spoke about 16 years ago as a pioneer in your book is actually disturbing the brain and even leading to cancers. Not because we think so, we know so. The number one killer today of our infants is brain cancer. If you had
Wow.
told me 40, 50 years ago that baby had brain cancer, I would have thought it was a sick joke or you were wrong. The number one killer of our infants today. Why? Because mom puts a laptop computer on top of her belly. Mom is working at a desk 8, 9 hours a day with a computer. Mom has a cell phone on. And anyone below 40, 50 years old, they can't live without a cell phone. I watch my 4 children and 8 grandchildren. And the truth is, it's unbelievable. It is almost, you talk about drugs. I've never seen a drug more encompassing than this drug. And there's no reason we can't use cell phones, but we've got to put them in place. When you come home with your partner, please leave the cell phone there. Nobody's going to die if you don't talk.
And turn the Wi-Fi off at night. That's a big one for me.
Oh my God, yes. People don't recognize what this does to the nervous system, what it does to the brain, what it does to hormones. In this book, we speak about a study that was done on cell phones and obesity.
Yeah.
There's 2 reasons. If you're perpetually engaged, you're not thinking about what you're eating, you don't even take time to eat, and it's a different sporadic, that's bad for you. But more importantly, this hits that part of the brain we spoke about earlier and shuts off, I'm full. And it says, I'm hungry. So 30% higher incidence of obesity with cell phone perpetual users.
Wow. Wow. I know, and there's so much we could talk about, Brian. I know you, in your book, you cover, biorhythms, sleep patterns, you even go into, damaging chemicals in clothing. I mean, I just love this. I can't wait to get into it all. It's all the stuff I've been talking about for so many years. I just love everything you've done. Let's just literally, before we finish, let's just touch on, the really something that's hugely important. Obviously, even if we do all this stuff and we eat really well, we need our mind needs to be in the right kind of space. And I love the fact that Dr. Zach Bush endorses your work, and I did a TEDx talk recently, and I quoted Zach Bush when he said curiosity is the most powerful force on the planet. I absolutely love his work. But just give us your take, sort of in a nutshell, the importance of getting our mind in order as well.
One of the biggest struggles I had is the year 1980, when they made my wife and I, Anna Maria, the directors of Hippocrates. Because we were completely convinced if you changed the diet, people would recover. And, we're PhD nutritionists, we're naturopathic doctors. I mean, the list goes on. And don't you know, I would watch people eat exactly like I told them to and exercise, and they'd still be sick and die. And I said, damn it, these people who talk about psychology must be right.
Wow.
So resistingly, I hired our first psychotherapist, and the universe gave me the right message because she was brilliant. And I watched people go into the room and walk out completely new and transformed in an hour. So we've had psychotherapists on our team, medical team, ever since 1981. And if you don't change your mind, you don't change your life. You don't change your direction. So I know that you have a wide audience of different listeners, but remember what I said today. The biggest addiction, pervasive addiction, is food addiction. But it's no different than alcohol addiction, drug addiction, sex addiction, whatever it may be. It's when you're running away from something and not joyous and happy in yourself. And to become joyous and happy in yourself, remember there's 2 facts that most people don't acknowledge or don't even know. That between conception and 6 years old, you and I developed 85% of our personality. Now, let me repeat this so you don't miss it. Between when you were a sperm and an egg, boom, now you're a little you, spark, until you're 6, 85% of the rest of our life's personalities develop. So look back and ask, were your mother and father loving? Did they express love? Were you poor? Did you suffer? Was there lack? Did people tell you that there was lack in your life? How about if did you go through, not in this generation here in Britain, but other people listening, did you go through war
Yeah.
or
Or
depression?
famine. Yeah. Yeah.
Famine. How about how many of you were sexually abused? We know 25% of young girls are generally sexually abused by a family member. And that's in every socioeconomic group, by the way. How about if you have a value problem because your father was a drunk and he was beating you and beating the mother? And the woman says, how come I've had 3 bad marriages? Because that's what you learned when you were 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 years old. So you've got to do psychological work. And if you're not willing and ready to do psychological work, you're not serious about being a happy, healthy human being. And I mean, there's a lot of quacks out there. Let's be honest with you. So you've got to search out and find a legitimate, thoughtful, kind, empathetic psychotherapist, because with that person, you can transform, you will transform. And by the way, you can heal, you can self-heal, but we need help. The universe didn't put one person here on the earth. Why there's men and women and friends and partners is because we need to love and support one another. And that's the mission that my wife and I are on. We are not going to let the world go down as it appears to be now. We're going to let the world come up. The world has to go down, the one that's broken and destroyed and disgusting and disease causing. But let me tell you, we'll emerge. We're going to come back. And we want all of you to join in by becoming whole, happy individuals that take charge and responsibility.
I love it. I love your optimism. I love it. And you're absolutely right. It's completely speaking my language, and you express that really, really well. Something that we talk about a lot in my work is the ACE study, where we look at the childhood trauma and its impact on addictions and as you know, as you say, on your personality. I also work with Family Constellations, so it's, I see it all the time. It's so very true. But you're right. You know, you can heal. That's the piece that's wonderful, because when you start to learn this stuff for the very first time, you think, oh, well, that's it then. I had a terrible childhood. The game's up. But, you know, we don't have to stay stuck, right? That's what's so amazing.
You know, when there's certain people, all of you would know. I know the American Oprah Winfrey. I mean, if you listen to her lifestyle, she should have been a street drunk, you know. But the fact is, she became one of the most famous humans in the world, wealthiest woman in America for many years, and a very pro-human person. And a Black woman in a society that's racist has an uphill battle. So don't you sit back and whine about what happened to you. Change what happened to you. You know, this second part of your life, or, you know, you may be young, maybe it's the middle of your life, can be transformative. And the way that people, you know this because you're a great human being, I can see what you're doing there. But if people only realized why we're here on the earth is to give, but if you don't have enough for yourself, you can't give. So develop you, become whole, become the cup runneth over. I think that was a Shakespeare thing, wasn't it?
Love it. Love it. I could talk to you all day, Brian. Well, I'm going to have to get you back. I'm going to ask you, and when you bring the next book out, yeah? How about that?
Well, we'll be popping them out left and right, you know, it's perpetual popping.
Perfect. So the book is The Self-Healing Diet, and we can find more about your work at hippocrateswellness.org. Brian Clement, thank you so much for being such an amazing guest. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Keep up your great work. Send love to everyone.
Thank you, Brian. So the stuff we were talking about there at the end, really so key in all of this. We can absolutely eat the right food. We can do, you know, some exercise and get our lifestyle seemingly healthy. But if we don't get the psychological part right, then it really is not going to work. And as you know, as I alluded to there, I really believe that there are many paths to this. Certainly one of them that's been incredibly profound for me is working with Family Constellations. In a very short space of time, this can make the most profound impact on dealing with the past, allowing what's happened in the past to be healed now. Let that heal your present, and I've said many times that perhaps right now it's you that is here to break the cycle of all the generations past. It's a very powerful thing. So of course I'm a huge fan of Family Constellations. If you are in the UK and you can make it to our workshop on Saturday, April the 15th, then check it out, please do. We will offer one online as well. Drop me a message if you are not in the UK but you would like to experience Family Constellations, and we'll see if we can set up an online workshop if we've got enough people to do that. And of course, I can also work with Family Constellations and with matrix reimprinting, which is the other modality that I work with. Sounds very funky, doesn't it? It's brilliant, actually. But I can do that one-to-one as well. So there are ways of doing this stuff, without needing to be in therapy for years on end. There are some really amazing ways of just being able to focus on how we can not stay stuck. As I said in that interview with Brian, we don't have to stay stuck. We really can take back that responsibility. But often we need some help. It perhaps isn't as straightforward as just clicking your fingers and deciding to have a different perspective. So if that's something that interests you, definitely check it out. And I'll put details of the self-healing diet in the show notes. Don't forget those events then. Sober by the Sea is coming up in April as well. And make sure that you drop me a message if you've got any feedback or any comments, and if you've enjoyed the podcast, it would be lovely if you'd let me know. I'd really appreciate that. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/Janey Lee Grace. Of course, I'd much rather have a real coffee with you in person if that worked out, but I appreciate it's not always possible. And obviously, if you want the connection piece, then check out the Sober Club. It's, again, so much more than just, in inverted commas, not drinking. We cover so much in there. Just had a great session this week with an expert on the menopause. So that was a great opportunity for some exclusive Q&A with an expert. And we have experts come in all the time. We do regular Zoom meetups. We have a fantastic small community, totally non-judgmental, and a whole member portal of information and videos. And there's an online course, and there's meditations, and just about everything else, really. So it's that holistic picture that we've been talking about before. So it's thesoberclub.com if that's of interest. If you're doing this, if you're just starting out, then always tell someone. I always say this because I think it's the piece that, really I didn't do. I didn't do it for so many years. I would decide I was going to stop drinking, but of course I wouldn't tell anyone at all. I wouldn't connect with anyone at all. And then by day 2, it all went up. Wine Witch had a little word in my ear and it all went up. And because I hadn't made any commitment to anyone, because I hadn't held myself accountable in any way, then, there was nothing to hold me accountable. So there I was, straight back down the slippery slope. But actually, if you're connected with us in the Sober Club, then there is that little sense of, oh, wow, do I really want to have to go on the group and tell them? Do I? So even if for that reason, it's really worth it. So check it out, thesoberclub.com. Also must mention that there are still some great competitions that you can enter before we close them, probably about to close them soon. Competition to win some Punchy, some New London Light, Talonmore, Bemuse. This is a great way to sample some great alcohol-free drinks if you're new to it all. And there's still, I think the competition is still open to win a hamper from Non-Intoxicated. And there's a huge range of amazing drinks in that hamper available. So you've got to be in it to win it, right? And also the Herb Tender, who were with us on the podcast last week. There's an opportunity to win some of their adaptogen blends. So, take your couple of seconds to enter, and it would be nice to see some people win who really care about this stuff rather than people who just enter competitions because they can, right? So I'll put the link to how you can enter the competitions on the show notes as well. You know where to find me, at Janey Lee Grace, across pretty much all of social media. And if you're doing this, as I say, tell someone. You can always tell me. I will respond to as many messages as I can. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. please rate and review. And if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.